I'm kind of passionate about. And what I hope is that, especially because we have an intimate group, that, if you have a question, perhaps you could, use the chat, or I don't know if people are allowed to unmute themselves, but absolutely at the end, I want to answer your questions, and maybe get you excited about this topic as well. All right. So if you're ready, we can begin. All right. And so we're talking about working remotely, and the benefits and risks of doing that. This seems to be a pretty popular topic lately, but I'm going to show you and talk about some aspects that you might not be thinking about. And then also we're going to look at this from, the individual all the way up to governmental. So there are probably things you might not be aware of that are thrilling, shocking, fill in the word that you'd like to think about. All right, so we're going to talk mostly about the risks because that's the most exciting part. And I am going to tell you a little bit about a couple, very lightly, some of the techniques I used to try to get companies to start to close the risks down, to reduce them or eliminate them. And it's a real challenge, I think, in particular for women. When you talk about IT security, a lot of the response that I get is, oh, that's for the technical guys. I really have seen a lot of that. And the way past that is, well, I'll show you. All right. So first, we want to talk a little bit about this, comparing the benefits and the risks. Yes, we have reduced physical commuting. That's great. It's also really great for the environment. And there's already been measurement that as a result of us working from home more, there has absolutely been substantive benefits to the environment. We also have to form stronger remote working relationships. We will get to know very quickly who we can rely on and who will get work done for us, and who will not. So it fosters a slightly different working relationship with folks. There are people where I've had to have, one-on-one conversations and just, talk to them about what's going on. Tell me what's going on, because they're not comfortable in the remote working environment milieu. It is a transition for a lot of people. And as Mariah can tell you, we've had other conversations, and tonight all 5 of the dogs are downstairs. So we have all kinds of distractions, but we also have this plethora of new technologies that we're all using, right? We're using collaboration software. One of the types that I've been using a lot pretty successfully, and before COVID, was a product called Rike, W-R-I-K-E, an unfortunate name, but it has some competitors you guys might be familiar with. Smart Sheets, Monday, Trello. You guys, shake your heads? Anybody use any of those? All right, so we're also using things like Google Drive, Google Tools, and the like. And all of these tools are terrific, but they weren't necessarily designed to be secure. So we'll talk about some of the weaknesses there. The other thing is, if we're working remotely, we need to make sure that it's very clear what you're going to do and what I'm going to do, so that we get to the finish line. And as a result of that, I see a lot more people coming to me with questions about, I need a process, right? When we work in an office, you can always stop by and have a conversation with somebody. That's not available to us any longer. You can't be the person who's making phone calls to people consistently. Working remotely is a little bit more like you're dealing with one another through emails, and you're also having to schedule and manage your time carefully. So, there are benefits, and then there are struggles. And we're going to talk a little bit about now some of these risks, as you would guess right off the bat. If my doorway it only fits one person at a time through it, I can only have thieves moving at that same pace. But if suddenly, instead of a normal doorway, I've got a garage door, or if I have an airplane hangar door, I'm leaving myself open to more types of intrusion. It becomes harder to watch over everything that is going on in my company, outside my company, and moving through back and forth. Again, those technology components that we are grabbing onto have some components missing. You guys are probably aware the New York City public school system stopped using Zoom because they found some security gaps in the Zoom product, which Zoom very quickly worked to try to close up. The New York City school system had already moved on to another product. We need to also, within our companies and perhaps ourselves, redirect funds and also our time and effort towards the collaboration products and the security technologies. So the other risk is I had planned to do this kind of business, or I had planned to perform this much in terms of sales, but instead now I've got to refocus some of my attention and time on both enabling effective collaboration and also putting the appropriate security technologies in place. And I can't do 150%. I can only do 100%. And that's impacting companies as well. And from an economic perspective, I just read something on Bloomberg and this morning, and they were saying how in this space, security right now is the number 3 item that companies say they are focused on. And in fact, the number 1 and 2 involved more effective process and ways of working. So that's kind of an interesting, I'm so glad Bloomberg agreed with me this morning. The other thing is coronavirus. We hate it. There's a lot of discussion in the ether about coronavirus, but the truth is, again, going to scientific resources, coronavirus is going to be with us for another year. And companies are facing that fact, and they're working to deal with it. And so what it looks like is, to some extent, remote working is not going to go away. There's going to be a little bit of oscillation as people attempt to, kind of get back to normal and may have to pull back. The other thing is, and this is the part that is just amazing to me, this coronavirus has just been like a payday for hackers, and the kind of hacking that is going on after us personally, as well as our companies and our governments, has really ramped up tremendously. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. I just want to know if anybody has any questions or thoughts? I'm looking at some of the faces out there. So, okay. All right. So we're going to look at quickly a couple of different scenarios, how we work today. So we're going to look at security in these scenarios. Right now, in this picture that we're looking at, we're working at the office. And when we're in the office, we're working within a company network, right? We've got all of our laptops, our PCs, our servers. Everything is contained within the security of a local area network, for example. All traffic that is going out to the internet or to other business partners or other locations are going through secure firewalls. And, you know, part of the security technology that is involved over here and has been around for a bit is things like the CASB technologies that monitor what is being requested out in the cloud. There's also SIEM technologies that look at what's going on internally inside my applications and also what's going on in my networks. I can tell you based on an engagement I had about a year and a half ago, they implemented these technologies with AI components. What they did was they got one company that made an entire suite of products that covered the entire environment. And I remember sitting with the CISO at the company and him saying, look at this, somebody accessed Workday application. Why is somebody accessing Workday from this company? And I had to turn to him and say, I'm sorry, that's actually me trying to file my timesheets for my company. But it was that the AI capabilities in this identified this one random, seemingly random access of Workday as an abnormal event, flagged it and made it available to them to review. So there are a lot of products like this that do this kind of monitoring. There are also services where any kinds of alerts are immediately sent to a service firm where they have people who do nothing but eat, breathe, and sleep, you know, security intrusions. And they're the people who would call us up and say, this is something real that you have to deal with. So working at the office, we're pretty secure in many cases. You may not have that at your company. We'll talk about that. Now, I'm going to be working from home, and my company was already set up to do some sorts of remote working. So I have a PC, and they've also given me a virtual private network. And by doing that, this connection can be detected, but everything going on between these machines is effectively wrapped and can't be looked at, can't be examined, and cannot be modified. All right, so VPNs, really good thing. Not a lot of companies have those in place. It takes a lot to manage them, and they are not necessarily low cost if you're deploying them to large numbers of employees. Now, here's where things get scary and interesting, and I see some faces smiling already. All right, here's my company. Use your own laptop. Okay. They do this at a lot of universities. And oh, look, I'm using a modem or I'm using a router to get to the company. I don't have a VPN. So at this point, or right here, I can be examined and parsed. Now, I also have, you know, my PC is actually a few feet away from my router. So now we have information that's floating around through the air, the Wi-Fi, and I have no other security on that. So a bad actor could conceivably be sitting under my deck and looking at my data. It's like a peeping Tom. And then of course my PC. Well, I do have one literally a foot away from me. I let the antivirus kind of expire on it, and it choked up, and it's dead. So all of these things are areas where we ourselves are at risk and potentially create points of intrusion for our companies. And then finally, let's add to this and talk about the fact that without a VPN, every one of these devices that you have, your kid's laptop, if you've got kids, if your husband is using a tablet to watch sports events, anything else, your cell phones, anything else that is going through that router, your television set. You've heard the stories about some of the TVs listening in on the voices that are in the room, your Siri, any other Internet of Things, IoT devices, all of those are talking to your router, and they are all points of being hacked, right? So one of the things that you can do to protect yourself, which is fairly easy, is there are VPNs that you can purchase that get loaded onto, or they are individual devices that protect your router. And by doing that, they immediately protect all the other traffic over here for everything that's going on through the router. The other thing is on your Wi-Fi. How many people I know love to put clever names on their Wi-Fi that draw attention to them? People like, FBI or something like that. People do this. So you want to use, when you have your setting up your Wi-Fi, put in a boring name, let people move on to something else, and also really use a hard to break password. This is a place where hackers have files of thousands of passwords. So if you do 123 QWE, trust me, it's in a file somewhere. So you really need to come up with something to protect your Wi-Fi so that people, again, can't examine or intrude on it. On your PC, let's talk about antivirus, right? So some of the antivirus services out there, Norton's and others, do have the ability to automatically download upgrades. But in my case, something went wrong with one of the upgrades and I knew about it and I just kept saying, oh, I'll get to it. Well, until it was too late. The other thing is backing up. People don't do this, including myself. So I had a backup that was over 6 months old. If you get infected, it is very possible that your entire machine is now in question. All of your data files on there, photographs, could have had programs inserted into them. And these programs will stay quiet for a while. I was mentioning to Mariah, there's an old one that was called Robin Hood and Little John. You guys may have heard of it. And what would happen is, if Robin Hood was discovered and cleaned off, a little time would pass and Little John would reinstall Robin Hood. And conversely, the same thing would happen if Little John was discovered, some time would pass and Robin Hood would reinstall Little John. So you almost never, could get rid of this. So you want to have backups, and there are services that you can use that will automatically perform backups of specific areas of your hard drive. And, perhaps like the place where you have your work, files or things that are very active for you. And then the other thing is when we have all of these other devices, try to restrict what you're downloading right now. There's just so much going on. If you see downloads for bargain movies and the like, it's probably, you're taking a risk that could turn into a much bigger headache. And the other thing is for right now, and I'm just saying for right now, don't, you know, there's like the Ring security system for your home that also relies on the internet and things like that. I would postpone those things for right now because it's kind of a rampant free-for-all. One thing I did want to mention to you, just this morning, ZDNet reported a new virus attack that was highly successful, and it attacks not by sending you a bogus phishing email. It actually produced a legitimate response to an email with a large distribution. So that's really chilling, and I'm not, you know, sure how we're going to deal with things like that. Right. So the other thing is when looking at those risks, if you get, for example, a ransomware attack, I've had it happen to me. Has anybody had a ransomware attack, right? Where they go, you know, you need to send us, you know, $40 and then we'll clear it off for you. Turn your machine off immediately. Ask your IT department if they will help you what you can do. If you work for a university, almost all universities allow you, because the students have their own laptops, you can bring in your own laptop and they will help you with it. They did that at Yale. I thought that was one of the best benefits of working there. Absolutely, you know, people are saying don't pay the ransomware. There are cases where they don't really have significant control over your machine. There are cases where people have paid the ransom and then don't get their machine unlocked. But again, ask your IT department. The thing that your IT department may recommend is, at the worst case, is completely wiping your hard drive and restore the entire system from your last good backup. And the thing that shocks me is how many hospitals and schools are increasingly the subject of ransomware. Recently, they actually traced someone's death in a hospital as a result of ransomware because systems were not available. And what ends up happening is the hospitals and schools would consider themselves, and also municipalities. Florida seems to be getting hammered with these things. But the idea is these guys come in, and for them, getting a $10,000 to $70,000 payday is a huge amount of money based on where the attacks are coming from. You know, some of them are coming from Eastern Europe and Indonesia. And if they manage to pull one of these off, you know, different Florida towns are getting hit. Hartford Public School had to open a week later because of a ransomware attack. And of course, banks and financial institutions we would expect. We're going to talk later about my favorite attack on a corporation. I'm not going to say favorite. It was a shame, but these things are done for many, many reasons. All right. Anybody have any questions so far? So I know it's been a lot of doom and gloom. Hang on here. Let's talk about, you know, who are these people, these nefarious folks, right? So the small guys who go after you and me, those can be groups of, you know, 3 to a dozen hackers. These are, you know, kids who spend their time doing this, and for them, based on, you know, the opportunities in their country, it's very lucrative for them to do this, to learn how to hack and, you know, and how to conduct these types of technical operations. The other thing that happens, of course, is phishing. And phishing can happen for a lot of reasons, but generally it's, you know, have any of you gotten the call from the IRS saying, you know, you need to make an immediate payment, and if you don't do it immediately, the police are going to be summoned to your house, and etc. So that's happened. And you know, another friend of mine actually received a really poorly done letter from the IRS telling them they had to buy Bitcoin and pay the fine in Bitcoin. Right? So these guys don't actually have anything over you, but the trick is, you know, people are vulnerable. Elderly people are vulnerable. And while, you know, we joke about, you know, the emails from the Nigerian prince, they're really getting very convincing these days. And it's important for us to make sure that our kids are letting us know if they're seeing anything like this on their devices. And also for our parents or grandparents, because, you know, they will specifically target older folks. So we want to really be careful about this. The idea behind identity theft, as opposed to, you know, just trying to get ransomware funds, is these are people who are going to create accounts in your name, use your credit accounts, drain your bank and savings and investment accounts. So identity theft is much more nefarious. It's really important for you to take steps to make sure that your accounts are secure. I cannot tell you how many of my friends, I won't tell you, how many of my friends actually have Excel spreadsheets on their computers that touch the internet that contain account numbers and passwords. Never, never do that. If you must write down, you know, or keep that information, it's time for pencil and paper. And you also want to try to use a, you know, I joke about it, but a decoder ring kind of approach to that, so that in case you lose that information, somebody else can't actually use it, right? So there are a lot of things that you can do today, but I would say that this has gone up just a huge amount. At one of my clients, I received an email that, because I was new there, it looked like it was from the president of the company, and I was dealing with the board of directors and everything there. And I immediately, like, you know, I'm like, you know, Candice Zarr, how can I help you? And then his text message came, I need you to buy some gift cards, right? I need those gift cards immediately. And just between us chickens, I had a lot of fun with this because I pretended to go along with it. And I pretended that his wife was looking for him. And then I pretended something happened at the Christmas party until, but they're out there like crazy, right? Now, the other thing that we're not necessarily aware of, people talk about governmental agencies. We talk a lot about what was it? There was a report that was done very early on by the Republican campaign committee. What they'll do is they hire somebody to go out and try and find out what detrimental information is out there about their candidate. And then, what is it? They dropped it, and then it became the Steele report, right? So it's very common for there to be research done on people of interest for potential blackmail material, right? I'm not that interesting, and frankly, anybody who wanted to show anything about me, they're welcome to it. But you know, we may know people who can have pressure brought to bear on them because somebody uncovers something they wish was not known. The other thing that kind of blew my doors off is they try to actually track bad actors where certain scientists are located and who else, what other scientists are in the area, because that gives them a clue as to what projects they could be working on. And I thought that this was something out of a spy novel until I went to a training class that was filled with people from the NSA. First names only. And, you know, they were the ones who had said to me, we can't give you our last names because then you'll know what we're involved in, which makes a lot of sense. The other thing that goes on is, of course, trying to just do data collection. Whatever they can get, it doesn't matter, something will turn up. And their capabilities, I'm going to show you momentarily about that. Of course, they want to know military readiness and capabilities. Outright financial theft, sure. Do you guys remember back, I mean, it hasn't happened for ages. There was a time where ATM networks would go down. And there were days where the, quote, the internet would go down, or like major websites would go down. So by creating disruptions, those can be practice runs for creating even greater disruptions. Today, we have just a tremendous reliance on the internet. Many people don't have landline phones any longer. So if you could disrupt the internet, you could conceivably disrupt people's communication channels. And that could be strategically helpful for some people. And then, you know, there's outright vendetta. I know that sounds wild, right? It's like, sounds like Italian opera, but it's true. Right. So one thing
Candy,
I wanted
quick
to
question.
I'm sorry.
Quick question. What do you think of password tools like LastPass, things like that, for keeping your logins?
I haven't heard anything bad about those, but if it's there electronically, that to me, that's like, you guys are mostly, I guess, around Stamford. I'm up in Wilton. We have a little bear problem going on. So I would not want to put a pot of honey out in front of my door. So to me, it's like, if you're doing that, that becomes something that's very attractive to hackers, right? And the truth is, my little poopy notebook with my little decoder ring code, you know, I don't know what to tell you. It is true that it's like everything nowadays wants an ID and password, right? So again, I haven't heard anything terrible about any of these services, but the first time that they get hacked, you know, they may hide it. Or we will feel the repercussions of that. The other thing, you know, realize that there are a lot of organizations, particularly these governmental ones, they will hack you in a way that you can't tell you've been hacked. They're collecting data all along. They want to keep it on the down low. It's not a one-time situation with a lot of these guys. So bear that in mind as well. You know, they might be collecting data. Here is an article from Bloomberg, which can you guys see this like little tiny thing that's on the tip of this finger? That is a chip. And that chip is on the motherboards of computers that the United States has been purchasing from China for years. This microchip, which is not bigger than a grain of rice, the only reason we found it was because Amazon was being assessed for a government project to use, you know, Amazon's AWS services. And before they decided to go out and buy the additional computing power they needed, they performed a security audit on the hardware, and they found it. They found this chip, and they ended up reporting this to the government, but also pursuing an investigation that went on for over 3 years. And I did provide you with the link to this article, but you can see that right down here, investigations determine the chip allows attackers to create a stealth doorway into any network. All right, so, you know, we talk about, you know, the pressures that take place between different governments and different nations. And when I've shown this article to other friends, they go, see those Chinese, they can't, you know, and I was like, no, you have to understand, China is not the only one doing this to us. And it's not just the people that we think are not our allies. Our allies do this to us as well, because in the game of nation states, someone who's your ally today may not be in the future. So you basically cast your net without the fish knowing about it, right? So this is kind of an amazing thing. And we don't hear that much about it. People seem to be overly concerned about 5G and tracking, being tracked on your phone. You're being tracked on your phone anyway already. So the truth is, as individuals, we're not so interesting unless we're a person of interest, unless they're looking at specific trends to create targets or opportunities. So, you know, here's a bad actor. I apologize. Mariah said this was like, and it really is hideous. I should have cut this back. So we already know that North Korea, we have difficulties with. But the truth about North Korea is they actually have 3 battalions of armed services. So in their army, they have battalions of people who do nothing but hack. They hack all day and all night, every day, 365, right? And what they're doing is, because there's so many sanctions on their country, and they need money, they are literally going out and robbing banks. They are electronically stealing funds from banks all over the world. They're doing it today. They've done it fairly recently. And even though the USA has been saying to them, please stop doing that, they haven't stopped doing it. They just don't care. Here's the name of one of the groups. They call themselves Hidden Cobra. It's, you know, come on, this is like really very macho guy kind of thing, right? The other thing is, you could see, I guess down here, you can see, as opposed to typical cybercrime, the group conducts well-planned, disciplined, and methodical cyber operations akin to espionage activities. So that's North Korea, who's an impoverished country. What do you think our friends maybe in the Soviet Union are doing, where they actually have an economy? This is the new warfare, really. You know, we still have boots on the ground and people unfortunately losing their lives, but there's a lot of this kind of activity that takes place. Are you guys familiar with the story about Stuxnet? No? Okay, so, you know, they're not the only ones doing this. While the United States doesn't take credit for it, the American and Israeli governments are reputed to have created a virus. The virus was sent to Iran. It infected their gyroscopes used for refining uranium for their nuclear bombs. And what the virus actually did was it made the centrifuges, it made their centrifuges believe they were unbalanced. And as a result, if you can imagine these large centrifuges, they broke, because then they really did become unbalanced. And what that did was that delayed the their nuclear aspirations by a couple of years. So, you know, our country's doing it too. Now, where does that leave us? I don't know. This is above my pay grade, but it's going on. The last one I wanted to talk to you about is revenge. And in this case, I don't know if did you guys see this film called The Interview? Yes, okay, a couple of heads nodding. So it was an okay movie, but the premise of it is that Seth Rogen and Franco are reporters. They go to North Korea and they're asked to kill Kim Jong-un by the US government, the CIA. And North Korea lost their mind. This started on a hacker group, identified itself as Guardians of Peace. Immediately reacted about this. They made threats. And what happened to Sony is, I apologize, guys, is that they got hacked. Employees' information was released. Their families' emails were released. And copies of their films were released. And the worst part was they actually erased Sony's infrastructure. All this because they were upset over film. And, you know, everybody knows it was the North Koreans, but it almost brought Sony Corporation to their knees. They literally were, you know, had all their projects. It's just like they had to stop their business. Okay, I see the peanut gallery there. How are we doing for time, Mariah? I think we're doing okay. Over. Yeah? Yep. Okay, so very quickly, what I'm going to do is tell you a little good news and some of the stuff that you can do with dealing with some of these threats that are impacting us. And, you know, even the ones that are governmental potentially could impact us. So we want to think ahead, try to think ahead. Companies should institute a security program, even if it's just a tiny security program, it's a beginning. And one of the hardest parts I've found in doing this, I often get asked to come into a company and help them fix one problem. But I always see the problems with the security program. And what I try to do is kind of softly, informally educate their management about how their lack of security could impact them and what it would mean to them personally, to the corporation and the employees. The first step in ever doing this is to evaluate your company's vulnerabilities and then look at, you know, what are your priorities for a financial institution versus a university? They'll be quite different. Another part of this that is, I think, very simple to do, doesn't cost a lot of money to do, is to actually look at your data structures and try to determine what is sensitive data versus non-sensitive data. Doing this can also cause you, if you're in a state where you're planning to move to another system, to move to a different database, to perhaps remodel your data at your company, to think about it in a whole different way, so that you make sure that the critical and sensitive data is locked up appropriately, and that access is controlled. And it's not a one-time thing. It's an annual access control exercise. Then the other thing is conducting a risk assessment. So you'll hear that term thrown around a lot. But in general, what a risk assessment is meant to do is ask about specific systems. What happens if it's not available for an hour, a day, a week, a month? And what are the financial implications of that? I will tell you that when I get a lot of pushback, and I do, from a lot of the heavily technical guys, the guys who, you know, spend their time hiding out in the, you know, the computer rooms, moving wires around, you know, and they'll go, you know, you don't know. But what I can do, and has been very compelling and successful, is to show them financial estimates of what can actually take place. This transcends everybody's perception of you in a very quick way. You know, do it discreetly, and be careful who you share it with, because you can upset people. But the idea is, if you can find somebody who can become a champion for doing security, you know, it's a matter of educating them and giving them the armament to help carry that agenda forward. We can't always do it on our own, depending on where we are in an organization and people's preconceptions about, you know, what's the girl stuff versus what isn't. The other thing that is pervasive, and really pervasive because of now working remotely, is what we call shadow IT. How many of you guys have spreadsheets that you've created that are on your laptop that have company data in them? I know I do. For all my clients, I've spent about 2 months working with one client to try to find out what is everybody pulling down, and what are they doing with these spreadsheets, and how do they move around? If it's in a spreadsheet, if it's on your local hard drive, and you don't have those other security measures we talked about, then it's at risk. The laptop can be lost. You could be putting it out in Google Drives that are your personal Google Drives that are not being, you know, carefully monitored. So all of that leaves another source of leaking company information out to people who shouldn't have it. And the big solution here is, there are these frameworks out there. You guys have heard of NIST, COBIT, anything like that? No? Okay. So there are security frameworks, and one of them is NIST. Here's what I love about NIST. It's updated very frequently. It's written by really good people, and it's free. It's from the government. If I wanted to use one of these other security frameworks, I couldn't do that, because I might have to pay $20,000 to have access to their materials. Well, if you're trying to get your company to do security, and the first thing you come to them is, I'll just need $20,000 to access COBIT's materials, they're going to say no to you. But instead, you can go to something like NIST, and I've given you a link. You can educate yourself there. There's training out there. It's all free. And it tells you what you need to do, what needs to be assessed, and what criteria you need to have solutions for. It doesn't tell you how to solve these problems, but it will say things like, there has been a data security analysis, and you know what your highly secure data needs to be. It's going to walk you through that, and the series of steps that would help you to button those areas down. So I think this is a terrific um, body of reference material. I would also say to you, this is the stuff you want to download onto your laptop. There was a period of time where all of these government websites were turned off by the current administration. I don't know why, but they were. And fortunately, I had about half of the documents that I needed already downloaded. But there's no prohibition from downloading this stuff. You can also become a part of the NIST community. The other thing I like about NIST is your company could go to any one of the, big accounting firms. I used to work at Ernst & Young briefly, and I apologize. Anybody here Ernst & Young alumni? Okay, so Ernst & Young charges an awful lot of money, all right? And then what they would do is they come in and say to you, we're going to assess you following the Ernst & Young method. Well, and that's great, and it'll probably cover 80% of what is in NIST, but it's Ernst & Young's methodology. Now your company is going to be audited. And now the auditors that are coming in, maybe they don't know Ernst & Young's methodology. They know something else. Everybody knows NIST. It's a standard. Other companies actually kind of compare themselves to NIST. So that's the other benefit. If you're compliant with NIST, you can be audited very easily. Auditors are not going to have to take a lot of time and cost your company a lot of money. The other thing is the material is surprisingly readable, right? We would expect this to be, oh my God, painful exercise, that sort of thing. A lot of it is quite good. And a lot of it is very current. They've got publications that actually talk about, cybersecurity for people working in small companies, et cetera. So that's kind of everything. And I apologize, I've been yakking away here. So just so you know, there's the Bloomberg article, the Sony Pictures article, here's the NIST link. The other things I just wanted to mention to you, if you have not seen, because I think these relate to this, is we don't always have to read articles, but we can enjoy a work of fiction. Cryptonomicon by Neil Stevenson is a book that compares kind of cybersecurity, if you will, back during World War II, and the way we defeated the Nazis' infamous encoding machine by the Brits over in Bletchley Park, and it compares them with people in a little bit more current time frame around 1997. Mr. Robot, if you haven't seen it, it is deeply psychological, but when watching this with friends, they were always amazed, and they would say, "You can't really do that, can you?" And I had to say to them, yes, everything that they depict in Mr. Robot is plausible. Not the psychological stuff, I don't know about that, but certainly the technology and how this guy goes about bringing down all the corporations and banking institutions. So I hope that you might find those entertaining on these long evenings that we have ahead of us. So should we go to questions, Mariah?
Yeah, sure. So I checked the chat and I don't see any questions. The woman that had the question earlier, she had to drop off, but she thanked you, for the presentation and for answering her question. Does anyone want to speak out loud and, go ahead and anything in your mind you're wondering about, you want to ask Candice before we break into discussion groups?
Good question. I guess for the NIST
like
that you mentioned, Candice, is that something that you would want to do within a company, or would somebody use that, for the privacy of their home system?
I'm sorry, what was the beginning of that question?
For the NIST.
NIST. NIST
right,
is for companies.
Okay.
But I think that no education is ever wasted, and that you'll learn things there that might help you at home. We're certainly, who would have thought, 20 years ago that I would have a router in my house, right? And it's only going to get more sophisticated.
Thank
All
you.
right. Does anyone have anything else they're curious about? Or any comments?
Are you all shocked about North Korea?
Something that I was wondering about, sort of going off the question earlier, I forget all my passwords. I have a hard time managing all them, and a lot of times I rely on my email when I'm logged in that'll auto populate a lot of my passwords and things. Have you heard anything about that sort of arrangement? Is that something that's frowned upon? I sort of just do it to survive and quickly bounce from application to application.
Again, I haven't heard any criticisms of those sorts of things, but I think that those companies have to make their techniques really secure. Otherwise, they are like the honey luring the bear.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that they're probably doing things that involve behind the scenes. Things are changing frequently, so that information is not at rest and subject to, oh, they broke in today and they can use it within a few minutes, that kind of thing. It's probably being changed frequently.
And this isn't really a question, but more of a comment. I wanted to share this. I had a friend recently reach out to me saying she's getting, she's on the job market and she's getting a lot of outreach on LinkedIn. And turns out there's a lot of, I guess you could say spam mail going out there. And I guess it's asking people to access the job description of the role this recruiter had in mind for you. You type in your credentials on LinkedIn to re-log in and access this. But I found that that's, they're trying to fish there. So something I just wanted to share because I've seen a lot of it. Candidates have told me about it. So beware.
Absolutely. I'm just kind of curious. Have any of you had any situations where you or somebody is subject to a successful attack? No? Anybody paid ransomware? No?
Oh,
That's good.
Good.
All right. Does anyone have anything they want to add before we break into discussion groups? All right. So I will go ahead and put everybody in a group. The group should be of 2 or 3 people, just to kind of talk through what we went over today. We're going to do a quick little icebreaker, very light. I kept it simple. And then we will just go over some things we could do in the future to stay secure in this virtual environment. So I think it's going to be like this, for the foreseeable future. So I will go ahead and click the button to open the rooms. We'll be there for about 10 to 15 minutes.
Okie doke.
joining us. Oh. All right, so everyone should be joining in 9 seconds, it looks like. Okay, looks like just about all of us are back. How are the breakout rooms? Did everyone get to chat and everything was good?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it was great.
So I just wanted to come back together and regroup and see what you guys, if you guys had any takeaways or things you guys discovered from your breakout groups that you want to share, any suggestions, tips, general comments.
I can speak for the group, or Tansa, do you want to?
No.
She's on mute. So we talked about, IT security and what's going on, but everybody who attended our breakout was not directly involved in IT security projects, but Wen is very interested in learning more. So I hope that she'll enjoy the NIST materials, and we're all going to connect on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Sounds like a successful meeting.
Yeah. My group had a couple questions, if I can ask them.
Sure.
So we were actually thinking about the NIST recommendation you gave earlier for security, and we all had the same question. If it's government run and government created, does that mean that anybody using NIST is observed, or so to speak, or tracked, or is all that information tracked by NIST?
No, you're not entering anything from NIST. You're downloading documents and educational material. The great thing about it is, it's the National Industrial Standards Technical LMNOP organization, NIST. So because of that, by following that framework, you're kind of compliant with a language that many other governmental organizations and industries will speak.
Okay. And then there's two other questions regarding Alexa. What are your thoughts on Alexa?
How do you forget about her?
I do not like those devices, and I don't have a need for that. But I was also, I'll admit, a little bit of a Luddite. Like, I didn't want a cell phone for a long time, and I resisted as long as I could until somebody threatened me. But I don't have a need for an Alexa, and I don't recommend them. There are some little horror stories out there, and they can be hacked. So, I'm just waiting for the story about like some vengeful husband who's listening to his ex-wife's Alexa.
I've had some interesting experiences with Alexa. Nothing like scary, but stuff I talk about somehow like gets ordered on Amazon and at my house. Like, I don't know, it's a little weird, but go ahead, sorry.
Well, no, I would expect that, and I do apologize for the background noise, guys, but I probably have a truck pull up to my house from BarkBox or something. So
no worries.
The other device that they were inquiring about, we were all inquiring about, was Nest. For instance, if you have the Nest to heat your house when you're away.
Oh, the Nest, right? That's similar to the one I think is called Ring. So I've actually researched those security devices.
It's just the heat. I think it's just to turn the heat on and off. Maybe it goes.
Right. Yes, you're right. That's right. That's Internet of Things. You know, you can use them, but they are a point of intrusion. And there's one episode in particular on Mr. Robot where these hackers need a place to work. And what they literally do is drive a woman out of her house by taking control of all these devices and just driving her crazy, like cranking the heat up, turning, you know, and then turning it way down, et cetera, et cetera. These things all can be done. Because when they build these devices, they build them to perform that simple function. They're not building them with the idea that someone malevolent will be acting upon them. And that's the thing that you have to look at, you know, particularly if a device is, I mean, these are very affordable devices too. They're not made to be, they're not made to be like fully secure. And when it comes to things like thermostats in your home, you know, you have to also look at like, what's the reason somebody would want to break into those? One could just be, you know, again, you get the young, you know, small time guys, college kids who think it's a blast to be able to do that. At the other, you know, end of it is, you know, potentially, you know, damaging your home or something like that. And then also, again, these devices are talking to your router. And do you have a VPN around your router? So I can get in through the Nest device and then get into your router and then get everything. It's
crazy.
It's a little bit scary. I mean, but the thing is, it's invisible, right? In a way, we don't, it's not tangential. So we don't think about it so much. And it's kind of, it's out there. I know it's like a paranoid's dream, right?
All right. So I think we have time for one more comment or questions. Anyone have anything else they want to add? We're coming up on the 1.5 hour mark.
Quick question for
Sure.
Candice. So for on the home laptops, do you need to install like multiple virus protection software like McAfee and Norton, or just one is enough?
No. In fact, if you try to put two, you're gonna they won't play well together. So you need to choose one. And if you are working for a company, the best one to use is the one that your company uses, because then you might get some advice and support from your company's IT tech people. You know, just find one who likes to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Would you recommend one over the other? I mean, do you have anything?
They are neck and neck competitors. Okay. You know, it's kind of like what, even their prices are so coupled. So I think either one is fine. But again, it's like, you know, ask your IT department, because one of the challenges we really have is for us to know all about all these different threats that, you know, I get newsletters on a daily basis flooding my email box with, you know, and now this virus and now that virus. So it's, we try to push the knowledge or get the knowledge from the people who are closer to it and more expert, and who can help us with it. Because I don't have time to be a 24/7 security person. And even security people who are really in the thick of this, they specialize in specific areas. You know, maybe after COVID, you guys might want to consider two of the best security conferences annually are in Las Vegas. And the first one, I think, is called White Hat. And it's like for corporations and everything. And then literally the day after that ends is the one for the hackers. And so I personally am looking forward to, I never wanted to go to Vegas, but I would love to attend both of those conferences, especially as they're back to back.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you so much to everyone for attending, and a special thank you to our presenter, Candice. I thought this was great, and leaves me with a lot to think about. So I'm excited to talk to my techie boyfriend and see what we can improve, for our in our apartment here. So thanks again, and look out for more information. I have a couple ideas for upcoming events, but I do want to run them by women in the field, see what you guys think about them. So feel free to respond back to that, just so I know what you guys want to see from us in the future. And I'll stay back a couple minutes if anyone has any questions they want to talk offline about. But thank you again, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Candice.
Please, let's link in.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a nice night.
Bye. Good night.
You too. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey, Megan,
Bye.
by the way,
Bye.
Mariah, by the way, do you,
Yes.
did you record this or?
Yes,
Oh my God.
I'm on it. I'm on the ball.
Okay. Could I impose on you? Could you send me the link when you have
Sure.
it ready? So I can review how I came across. All right.
Absolutely. Yes. I
Thank
will
you.
do
You are,
that.
this has really been a delight to get to know you, Mariah.
Oh, and same
I'm
to
really
you.
I'm just blown away at how professionally you've run this all.
Oh, well, it's possible because of, people like you. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your knowledge. And, I hope that you become a member and attend, and
I joined on Meetup, so
yeah, I saw that.
Right. All right.
Yep, it came
Anyway,
through.
have a great evening.
You
Take
too.
care
I'll
and
talk to
stay
you
safe.
soon. Thank
Right.
you.
Bye.
Bye.